Hey,
Twitch.tv. Yeah, what's up?
unfortunately, I'm gonna have to leave, like, now because I'm going out for dinner.
Okay.
Just, just say that,
Well, we are live right now, so...
oh, damn, okay. So, I'm very sorry, everyone, but, my name is Donut. I did, Raru sprites for this volume of Still in Blood, and, I hope that you all enjoy them. I hope you all enjoy this volume and everything. We worked pretty hard on it. Alright, see ya!
See ya.
See ya, have fun.
You are chatting. Let me make sure I can see it. Alright. Alright, here we go, Chief. Alright. Let's get started. Nobody else on the team has joined this voice call. Donut was here briefly. It's unlucky. Let's see what we got here. Thanks for the follows, Rice Milk 09 and Donkey 2012. Let's get this party started. Your name is Cecily Opara, and as of right now, those two six-letter words are the only things in your life that feel real. What felt like purpose and drive has given way to caution and suspicion. No longer are these thoughts resigned solely to those you pursue, and instead those you believe you could trust have become shrouded in deceit. What felt like a sliver of progress has brought you back to where you began, a single inky drop in an ocean of obsidian. But you have conquered greater depths than this. You've weathered storms more turbulent and faced waves far taller. You're going to grit your teeth and face the unknown head on. And you're going to do it your way. That means getting down and dirty with some deep diving detectiving. You double-checked the records around the time of the case and looked into the leads you'd been given. And although it has put you into danger more than once, following the leads of that mysterious voice has given you more direction than corporate resources could provide. 2 more trolls to talk to. 2 more pockets of knowledge to make clear. Who should we do first? Let's see Raru first. It's rare for you to feel quite this lost. Not necessarily with physical direction. You can make your way around Stronghold 21 easy enough. But after everything you have now discovered, it's harder to pull yourself through this ordeal. There's an emotional lilt, a feeling of betrayal. But to hell with them, then. You're tasked with getting results, and that's something you pride yourself on. If not for corporate, then for people like Orica, like Osius, who are doing what they can to help you in this fractured world. But to get results, you need more direction than a street corner. Most of your leads so far followed up either corporate's directives or chasing up information from other suspects. And while things didn't go exactly as you'd planned with BitCon, trying something different at least provided you with something new. Eventually. Was it worth it? You leave that up to your mental jury to decide. Nevertheless, you're feeling better about things this time. Expanding the scope of the investigation slightly, you looked into the large-scale events in the Fortwise leading up to the filter being stolen. One event jumped out at you. Corporate's Awards for All Night. In particular, the event was catered for by one Raru Dursal. It's with him that you hope your next break in this case lies. Known far and wide as the curator of culinary creations, Raru Dursal is often credited as the man single-handedly responsible for the revival of the culinary arts. While often employed for upscale events that require a large number of meals, it appears that one of his great passions is in teaching others the craft. His influence in the space is all-encompassing, and those who do work in the kitchen swear by Rorian steel for their knives and blades. From personal accounts of those who worked under him, although he can be tough and strict, Raru inspires those around him to give their all. You're personally aware that Raru was in charge of food preparation for the AFA night. There's every chance the perceptive chef may provide a connection or two for you to follow up with. When not cooking during the day, Raru's usually at his own personal culinary school, where he teaches trolls simple meals that they can prepare at home. While digging up information, you noted that the level of class can range from outdoors hunting expeditions and survival preparations to high-class meals free of meats altogether. It's here you've come today in hopes of catching him at the end of his lesson. You try to subtly open the door, but the bell tolls for thee. A small ringing chime hung above the door marks your entrance and relays your presence to those inside. Thankfully, it seems as though the class is close to finishing, right on schedule, and most of the budding chefs quickly turn back to tidying up their equipment. You watch as the cleaning gel pours viscously out of the taps before being applied to all manner of knives and ladles, pots and pans, essentially everything in the kitchen sink. You sidle across the stand at the back, making a motion to press down your coat in a terrifically nonchalant way. You're the picture of precision, as always. As you scan the room, it becomes quite clear to you that each sink space is holding two cooking enthusiasts. The scents of delicious creations lightly float towards you. Many spices mix in your mind, but one comes through clear. Honey. You feel your heart grab an extra beat or two. She would have loved to do something like this. People begin to flow out the door behind you, bell chiming each departure. Each pair carries a delicious-looking honey spice cake with them. Your sweeping scan, cut short by those sweet smells, continues its path along the scene to abruptly stop at a rather familiar pair of budding cooks. Oh no. You really didn't want to talk to this guy again unless absolutely necessary. Except he's already coming your way, and it's clear that both he and his cooking partner have spotted you. There's no backing out of this now. So we meet again! How lovely it is to see you, Cecily. You don't feel you share the same enthusiasm, but you suppose when a move is made, one must respond in turn. I must say, this is quite the surprise. I didn't think you ever left that dome. Cecily, please. I already told you I have a number of non-currency-related hobbies. One of which is making an absolutely delicious wool beast stew. You almost take a step backwards as Bitcon begins to visibly blush. You are not usually one to meddle in people's personal affairs, much less this particular troll's. And it certainly helps you paint a more complete picture of the pair, much as it confuses you. Anyway, we must be off, Cecily. Loops don't pop out of trees, you know. Speaking of which, I've been thinking of a couple more currencies. What do you think of blade bits? No? How about currency? I'm sure there'll be great successes as always, my little rat. You can see Andari playfully nudge Bitcon at that remark. He waves back at you and the two depart. You're not exactly sure what you feel at the moment, but thankfully with the place now emptying, you don't have to dwell on it for too long. You approach the front of the cooking class and perform the tried and tested throat clear to the chef in charge. Ah! Maybe that was too much. I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to startle you. It takes a moment for the chef's hair to deflate and his pupils to return to normal. His hand is clearly tensed on the knife, so quickly swung your way. If you hadn't taken a short step back, it could have clipped your collar. You give him a chance to catch his breath. It's all right. I do apologize, but class is finished for the day. I'm not here for the class, Mr. Dursall. Cecily Opara, Corporate Regulator. I was wondering if you remember anything about the recent Awards for All event put on by Corporate. Anything that might have been out of the ordinary. From the records, I'm aware you were catering that night. The chef returns to slowly cleaning his own knife, cloth partially coated in that same gel fluid. You note his averted gaze, keenly focused on the motions up and down the well-maintained blade. It feels familiar, the adept care one shows to one's tools, be they sword or cleaver. Answering unnecessary questions really doesn't rate high on my list of most enjoyable activities, Regulator Yopara. If that's all you've come here for, I really would like to head home. I'd prefer not to keep Lauren waiting. He makes a move forward as if to sidestep you, but you quickly match his steps. You exhale a sigh, prepared to up the ante and advance yet another piece forward on the board. This is no trivial catch-up over boiled monster, Raru. Corporate has had a vital relic stolen, and I believe this party was within close enough proximity that it might hold some clues to the crime. The burglary, as it were. Raru raises an eyebrow in response to that. Murder burglary? I'm trying it out. Wordology notwithstanding, my point of contention was not aimed at its relevance to you. My confusion is why you would need to ask me about it in the first place. You were there. Oh, that's right. You were there. Recall the party. Every sweep, to help boost the productivity of corporate, Sestro thinks up an individual award for each member of the company. These are all presented at the prestigious Awards for All gala evening. An event you are unfortunately obliged to attend. Your wall of trophies from various AFA nights is almost filled, and you feel like tonight's award for exceptional regulating in the field of detectiveship will squeeze its capacity to full. You sometimes joke that it means you'll have to retire soon, but really you could just use a different wall. But it's hard for you to keep focus. You stand wedged against the far corner of the room, picking up the odd scrap of conversations in between beats of the hot jazz. You're glad for the moment that the band at this corporate shindig isn't singing. You can't focus when they're singing. I just don't think the genre's lucrative enough to make a whole series. So I told him, get this, we don't manufacture enough plastics and 10 sweeps for that much to be worth it. And I just worry about the integrity of the route data. How frightfully morose, Ceci! Oh, Yeshin slinked up to you. So much for focusing. Late, as always, to this party where she's serving as your +1, a decision you'd regret if not for the cut of the cocktail dress she's wearing. She throws a hand across your back and leans in, making a show of conspiratorially surveying the attendees at the party, all dressed to the nines. She scoffs and then whispers in your ear. Methinks it's a little too easy to find you at these gatherings, my good bitch. Just looketh in the corners for the sullenest one. Lol! Her frown is clearly exaggerated. You roll your eyes, but follow as she leads you to the dance floor. You try to pick up a few more snippets of that conversation about the route data, but the way she walks makes a thumping upright bass line out of your heart. Like a savannah beast, loping, prideful. Showy. Showy. She's all show, this woman, and you've been buying front row tickets like the complete sucker you are for 7 sweeps now. You waltz with her, and the moment's almost beautiful until she opens her gaudily lipstick mouth to talk. That's thy problem, girl. Thou art always crashing parties and drug dens, bandit hideouts. You're closer to fun more often than anyone else on this blastedeth planet. And yet thou art never having any of the fun for yourself. You give her a spin and tell her you were having significantly more fun until a trollop accosted you for a dance. Do try not to embarrass me in front of the co-workers, you say dryly as you continue to step to the beat. Oh, don't pretend like you don't like it having a bit of yield arm candy to show off to the suits. And anyway, a dance is the least thou owe me for always bailing you out when your first choice of date declines. You dip her dramatically. She rather catastrophically misses the threatening, instead continuing her ill-advised conversational course. Because no matter how I act, it doth be less embarrassing than showing up to a gala with your little pale whore. Oop! The oop is from you dropping her straight from the dip, back first onto the dance floor. The chatter around the room stops. Whoops. You take long strides off the floor and past the throng staring at you. All the while, Yeshin's cracking up, laughing on the ground. You try not to notice that your face burns. You swing open the double doors to the balcony where a couple trolls are smoking in the cold night air. They see how pissed you are and put out their sticks, charred sugar smell following their quick retreat inside. You stew for a few minutes. Then you hear a sing-songy voice tauntingly behind you. See, now you're having fun. I know it, you need a fight. Like an animal, she pounces on you, hand at your throat, and you kiss greedily in the moon's light. You didn't get any further useful information from that party. What? We all have our vices. This investigation keeps bringing up recollections you wish you could forget. Nevertheless, you've been standing here for a good few words and haven't really given Raru an appropriate response. He seems to have returned to wiping down his knife in the absence of a better option, while you delved into your subconscious for a moment. You're right. I mean, I was there, but for lack of a better word, I was somewhat preoccupied. You see Raru glance momentarily at the clock on the wall before he lets out an exhausted sigh. If we keep this quick, I suppose I could help sharpen your memories. I can at least attend to the end of night tasks if you have another moment like that. Where should we start, then? You're pretty sure there's 3 easy talking points to cover. The question is, what to indulge first? Something that could help your recollection would be the actual rundown of the night's events. You were swept out and away from the festivities for a while. There are parts of the night I can remember, but I appreciate a reminder of the full events program. All things considered, it was a standard 4-course gala event. We provided light refreshments at the start of the evening upon arrival, mostly small, bite-sized appetizers. After an introduction from Sestro and Hamifi, we served entire meals. Mixed ground plant soup with grain loaf, if I recall. That much is familiar to you. For most of this part of the night, you were at your table, waiting, staring idly at the seat beside you for that loathsome +1 to arrive, shifting your food around and keeping it carefully ear open. Most conversations were trivial in nature, about current corporate happenings and goings-on. You quickly rifle through those thoughts, but dismiss them as any culpable leads. After entrees were the first series of major awards for the night. I was definitely thankful to be in that first award bracket, not least of all for how the rest of the evening transpired. Raru seems to continue along his meal plan, unfazed by your personal musing, glancing away from your face for a moment. He clears his throat, you suppose as a small token of acknowledgement to your statement. The first segment of awards closed with a live performance by Ramona Raquel and her very big band. You remember something from a few volumes ago that lodged itself in your subconscious during a tar drink haze. It bubbles to the surface of your mind like the sprinklings of ticket stubs, bringing with it the unfortunate recollection of a certain pitch's text. You mentally pop that particular thought for the moment. Ramona Raquel, if I recall correctly, has also personally lost something in recent weeks. A necklace of some description. There's maybe a chance there's a connection there. Raru raises an eyebrow, before slowly shaking his head. That case was closed rather quickly, Regulator. One of the band members had forgotten they placed it in their case for safekeeping. Drat. You feel the pang of disappointment, having been denied a tantalizingly simpler side case. On long investigations like these, you can really miss the feeling of closure. There's an itch under your skin to get down to pursuing adversaries. Finding tangible clues that lead you from one location to the next, providing evidence to systems of law and order, even the rush of exclaiming your objections and refutations. You miss it all. Casework is important. You know this more than anyone. But these legs were made for regulating. Right. Please, though, continue. The mains were next, I believe. That's correct, yes. We always take the most pride in our main courses. I feel that this moment of the culinary proceedings matters more than any other. You get to make a statement at this point of the night, and for me, I believe this statement should be as personal to the guest as possible. A personal cuisine statement. Come to think of it, you do recall looking around and seeing a wide diversity of meals on offer at the table you were seated at for the first half of the evening. We try to accommodate for all our guests. Corporate were able to survey some extra information for us that evening so we could truly take our ideas and help them bloom. Raru seems to have a real sparkle in his eyes. The way his face is illuminating with each sentence's increasing passion really makes it easy to see the dedication he has to his craft. You think back to the warm smells of the evening, the way the food tasted, and even the way it felt to eat. It was clear that everything you supplied to corporate, thorough as you usually are, was brought back to you 12-fold with a culinary creation that felt matched to you on an individual level. If I may be so bold, Raru, that night I experienced a truly remarkable dish. Your care and attention to my personal palate did not go unnoticed. That's often a length you don't see many in the food industry striving for. There's a moment where you see a tinge of blush mixed in with the very humble pride Raru Dursal exudes. He finds himself having to clear his throat for a very different reason this time. Thank you, Regulator. That really does mean a great deal to me. Anyway, the mains were part of a larger intermission. Guests were given an opportunity to mingle. The moment when the tiger pounced. The moment when you two became lost in your own world. After a period of time, Sestro returned to the stage for the second set of awards. We followed with a serving of multi-stage sugar cake, in all the colors of the emo spectrum as the final dessert, paired with a series of warm cocoa-based drinks, of course. Hamifi gave what I was led to believe was a traditionally brief speech, a final performance, and the night was closed. Raru gives a brief sigh, exhausted. You take a moment to try and push away the fog of red and blue from your mind to grasp onto something from the end of that evening, but it seems you can do little to shake it. Thank you for that, Raru. If I may ask a follow-up question then, you've detailed a certainly tight schedule and plan. Did anything seem out of place on the night? Anything not run smoothly? Raru seems to think for a moment, a scowl slowly forming on his face. Sometimes there are certain people in the team I pick who think it wise to test my limits. There are always those who think the kitchen is a place of jokes and japes. He slams his knife down into the cutting board, and for the first time you can notice a few additional stab markings in the wood from previous altercations where the wood has clearly been split. But I will never allow it. Otherwise, things seem to run smoothly. I can't speak for the awards themselves, obviously. That's some quick composure. You think you've gleaned pretty much all you can from this line of interrogation. If there's one thing you know is true of a big event like this, it's the level of conversation an author. While you managed to catch only snippets of conversations due to the headache of auditory overload, there were many guests in attendance and even more ensuring the night ran smoothly. Including, of course, Raru. As head chef for the night, I would assume that you would hear many things, both from your staff and around the kitchens, especially when people might not think anyone is listening. Do you recall overhearing anything that might be important to divulge from the night? It seems that the chef is more interested in the gleam of light his knife makes as he twists it in his hands. In terms of my own crew, I try to run a tight ship. No nonsense conversation. We prepare the ingredients, we make the meals, we serve them. And you're right, as head chef, it is my role to oversee everything that occurs around our kitchen space. Both inside and out, I assume. You can see him grip the handle a little tighter as he continues to avoid your gaze. Yes, that's correct. This feels like pulling teeth, and you'd rather stay away from morgues after your experiences with Osius. You figure now is the time to bring your boot down, hard. And if this is the case, Raru, did you or did you not hear something that night? That's quite enough! His knife lodges in the board beneath him. The silence that follows could be cut by the very same blade. It hangs in the air like a particularly thick, viscous sauce. His hair seems to deflate again after a moment, and with a soft tug or two, he removes the knife from its wooden scar. It is possible I overheard a conversation that night. I know I didn't bring it up at the time. I'm not always particularly fond of these sorts of interactions. For the same reason I tend to keep my ears open, I also try to avoid loud, yelling figures of authority. You can never know what someone else is thinking, what they say behind closed doors. It's been a while since you were trained for this kind of work. Through your basics, you learned all manner of blooded traits to keep an eye out for. Strong survival abilities, purple-blooded psyops, but the fixations of the verdant caste are much less documented. Greenbloods will often focus on an individual personality trait, be it striving for perfection, obsession with purity, a materialistic hunger, or perhaps a convergence on one's self-loathing. In this case, it seems like you're dealing with a deeply rooted paranoia. You've never been one to care much what others think of you beyond your employers, and even they are now dubiously placed on that list. But one thing you know for certain is that isolating Raru now would bring you no closer to finding the truth behind this case. That, at least, keeps you moving in the face of terrible headaches, exploding traps, and far too many offers of tea. I understand that it can be hard to know who to trust. Please forgive my outbursts. I'm sure you can understand the sort of pressure I'm under. There's a saying in my line of work. If you can't handle the heat, you'll never boil. So here's my whistling kettle tune regulator. There was a conversation I overheard about route data being sold to someone pleasant at the party. I could only catch the tail end of it, but it seemed to refer to a corporate organized transfer operation. One of the brief snippets you can recall from that night tugs at the front of your mind. Someone was discussing the integrity of route data. It's a tentative link, but it doesn't take a gigantic leap to see that this might tie into the knowledge of the tundra traversing a truckload of goods, including the filter. Do you recall anything about the people discussing this? Anything at all? Unfortunately, no. As I went to leave with some entree dishes, I looked around, but the crowd was already in full mingle mode, and I was not particularly fond of traversing so many individuals. The coroner and I were becoming quite acquainted, yes. I'll see what I can find out then. You have my thanks. It's not a lot, you suppose, but barring an uninvited guest, you may have a particularly robust suspects list once more. And there's every chance other members of corporate present could have also heard this discussion. All the more reason to check out some of the people you and Mashiri were discussing. If something transpired at this awards night, it potentially places anyone present as a suspect, or they may simply have witnessed other events that neither Raru nor yourself can recall. Any one of them could be a follow-up lead. This event is usually one of the biggest of the sweep. If I recall, there were many prominent members of corporate as well as celebrities and big names, too. The guest list I received was initially daunting. Certainly I'm no stranger to upscale dining, but this was a lot of fucking people to feed. Anyone there could have been privy to secret conversations and dealings. One of the best ways to hide a secret can often be in plain, albeit crowded, sight. I know I wasn't entirely present for the later half, but there were some colorful characters that come to mind. Colorful describes Turn and Kai Kai to a T. They were definitely invited and exceptionally difficult to cater for. Brendan Fraser was getting an award for his acting, too. Yes, finely sliced ham beast strips, lightly honeyed with a code red jus. I'm sorry? His main meal. We internally called it the Return of the Mummy. You have to give props to his creativity. You would likely just call it a crunchy mess. Sounds charming, I suppose. I'm getting another vague recollection, if only because I'm sure it was the longest award name of the night. Todd Howard. Why, there's an award for Game of the Sweep that's forced to include his gaudy name title and it is beyond me. Raru's eyes seem to light up a little, but you have to admit the foremost video game designer of Repeton doesn't usually turn people's heads. He just sort of exists. Appears when you don't call him, frustrates you to no end, and yet, you can't help but feel entirely enamored by some of his efforts. Oh, I actually find Skyrim CD for the Intellivision Amico, including the new virtual reality DLC, quite charming. The way they've rendered some of those delicious craftable meals really makes me feel like my work is having an impact, you know? They're really up to the 400th installment already? Feels like just yesterday we were playing Oblivion for the first time, I know. You'll forgive me for not sharing in your recollection. I definitely tried to make an impression with his main meal. Maybe someday he might include it in one of the games for real. Imagine people all over the world being able to bring the true culinary arts to their home. As much as it's nice to get a smile from the slightly agitated chef, you really want to steer this conversation away from video games. You're not about to be sucked back in by Todd's lies. Moving on. We should get back to some of the more internal awards, maybe. Those with closer ties to corporate. You're right. My apologies. His face seems to slowly return to the furrowed brow of someone deep in thought. You recall some of the corporate trolls at your table, but through distant conversations and faces without clear names. Being in the dregs of corporate as long as you have, there are so many people who are familiar and featured, but you never really got to know. I do recall a couple other attendees from their interactions with my staff. Barar was particularly specific about his cocoa. He had me do a stupid song and dance number before he considered it acceptable for consumption. And I don't mean figuratively. Barar. Sabine, you believe. One of the junior designers for corporate. It's certainly not the first time you've heard his name, and certainly not the first time you've heard someone complaining about his antics. And I believe Elidian was receiving an award related to engineering or something to that effect. He was there with someone too. They were both exceedingly excited about the broth grain noodle soup. They even asked for the recipe. Raru seems very interested in the blade of his knife, his eyes attempting to bore holes through the steel. It's just ramen. Lydian certainly rings a bell. You can feel the information manifesting in your mind, a series of numbered points beginning to be joined to form some semblance of a picture. Maybe a purr beast? Never mind. That's something you can catch up on later. You feel it would be good to break Raru out of his subconscious spaghetti suffering, though. There's at least one attendee I can vouch for, regrettably. Yeshin, like his maces. The mind mist that can't be dismissed. Careful, any more assonance and you'll be diced up for a Slitherbeast stew. You run a hand through your hair, exhaling perhaps your longest breath yet. Honestly, just throw me in. I'm meant to be on top of this shit, but every time she all but appears, it's addictive. She's addictive. The chef responds with a solemn nod, and you can see an all too familiar flame in his eyes. When you find that person that gets under your skin like no one else, you so often crave seconds. Just like his slimy, greasy, done-in-minutes food, absolutely focused on doing it quick, not right. You quickly respond to get the conversation back on track. Maybe at least one path in this triad will be resolved without resorting to knife-on-wood violence. I'd rather not let her stake her claim in my mind much further in this conversation. She was there. I'm sure I could always just chase up a full guest list if I get stuck. We've yet to talk about your end. Do you feel your team was trustworthy? Raru twitches a finger on the hilt of his knife, and you can almost feel the way his teeth grit. I always hand-picked my team, Regulator. They were of the best quality. I kept eyes on them throughout most of the night and can assure you the kitchen was a well-oiled, mechanized unit. Sometimes they pushed my buttons, but I know the truth came out in the meals they crafted. Well, that settles that. You decided to press the easily startled chef with the large kitchen knife. Lots to follow up on, you think. Lots to think about, you follow up. Do you dare allow yourself a brief moment of positivity? It's early days on these new leads, but they seem to open up a whole tree's worth of branching opportunities, and hopefully a few of those branches will bear fruit. You have a clearer direction and some ideas for who to turn to next, some characters to examine, and the clarification of a conversation that seems almost too good to be true. You extend a hand, thanking Raru for clearing some of the pitch-induced fog of the night. He hesitates for a moment before returning the gesture. After you pull your hand back, the culinary creator pauses for a moment, eyes drifting to check the time once more. Regulator, if I may now ask for a moment of your time, please wait here. A bold request, but one you feel obliged to accept. After all, it seems only fair. You wave him away, leaving him to his devices. Turning back to face the back wall of the space, you call out ease with your voice. You begin to make a note of the important facts, details, and new possible suspects. A report still needs to be filled. A record needs to be kept. If not for Hamifi or Sestro anymore, then for the future. For those who need to see it. For those who deserve the truth. One particular file comes into view. Hers. You find yourself pausing, staring at the cover of the file as it would open itself and force you to peruse its contents. Before you can choose to delve into the details of your pitch affections information, Rauru returns and saves you from the decision. Go ahead. I figured you might enjoy it. He pushes forward a small box wrapped in an olive fabric sheet. While it's no violin case, you're a little more hesitant than usual to accept foreign and strange gifts. Even if the person they're from is a somewhat more credible individual than a mystery voice beyond a screen. And this is? Dinner, I suggest. Keep up that appetite for justice, Regulator Opara. I think that we may all be counting on you for this one. The fabric comes away smoothly at a tug of the small knot made in the corner. The box inside is a surprising teal, and you find a grin spreading across your face that's joined by the slight cheerful laugh of a certain culinarian. Placing it down on one of the cooking benches, you examine the box's contents. Each small component of the box is filled with those same portion meals from your main course meal, prepared with the same tender care to your palate as it had been on the awards night. You take a moment to breathe a deep whiff of the delicious spices before reboxing and rewrapping the food container. You didn't have to do this, Rauru, but thank you. I look forward to enjoying it. It's my pleasure, really. And please remember, Regulator, a watched pot should stay out of the kitchen. Keep yourself safe out there. The soft chime of the bell signals your leave from the humble cooking school. Though class may be over, you've got a hell of a lot of extracurricular work to catch up on. Time to hit the books. That's a good boy right there.
Rauru is such a good boy.
Yeah.
That's a good boy right there.
One word beef, another word cake. You smash them together, and
Is that his specialty? Is that his specialty dish, beefcake?
yes, yes, exactly. I mean, it's a delicacy. It's canon now. I decree it.
Noted.
I mean, with the way that I drew him, he is a beefcake. Oh my god.
Is genius.
Oh boy.
Let's see. Be right back. I'm gonna grab some water. I'll be right back. Feel free to continue talking though while I'm gone.
Yeah. No.
Okay.
Yeah. While I have a moment to talk, I just want to say, like, amazing job on the sprites, by the way. Like.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Charlie Calocart, I believe that's how their Twitter handle is called. Did a really good job on Master Hermit's sprites.
Yeah, it's just all the artists in the team just crush it like 24/7.
God, yeah. It's like for sprites or backgrounds, it's really good.
Yeah.
We do fucking amazing, and it's incredible.
Yeah, and I'm just realizing that I'm not actually on the stream window, so I can't actually see what people are saying. So I'm just going to imagine what they're saying, and if they say other things, then I'm just going to seem like a big old dang fool.
They are holding on to Rauru being a beefcake.
Yep.
So thank you for that.
I'm still admittedly a little salty that his music track didn't end up being called like steak pastry, but but I will put it aside because what it actually ended up being was like I think it ended up being like ratatouille.
Ratatouille, yeah.
Yeah.
Ratatouille reference. Good movie, by the way.
Amazing movie.
Really
I haven't
is.
seen it in like actual years, but
Same.
I do need to watch it again.
It's on Pixar's best. It's really underrated.
Do you think Rauro's Lucis is just like a little rat that like hides in his hair?
No, it's not actually. It's actually a mountain lion kind of Lucis. I don't think
That,
Fears talked about it in the Soul and Blood chat, but it is a kind of feline Lucis.
hmm, that
He
makes
has like
sense.
slit pupils and his hair poofs up when he's startled or angry.
Rara or the Lucis?
It's like it's very minor details they put in his sprites.
Yep. Oh man.
Oh
I'm
yeah,
also
by the
very
way,
excited. Yep.
yeah. By the way, for anyone who's like is watching, hi, I'm Donut. I did Raru's sprites. They were really fun.
And hi, I'm Alienoid, and I did like the end card for Masked Hermit's route, and I think that's about it for this one.
Yeah, don't worry, Alien, you're valid, and we appreciate all your contributions.
Yeah. I will be doing more writing eventually.
Yeah,
Just as of right now, there are other people, which
yeah,
there's some good stuff coming up.
yeah,
Like y'all better be pumped.
yes. For the writing of both Raru and Hermit's route, Veritazune wrote both the routes, which is pretty
Yeah,
exceptional.
yeah, like everyone was a little like are you sure you wanna take that on? Like that's like that's a lot. And he was like, nope, I got this. I want to do it.
Yeah,
And you're like, okay. And then
sure
he did
did.
both of them. And then he also crushed that. We just do a lot of crushing here.
Yeah.
It's the S in SBB stands for the S from crush. I should have thought of a better thing to say than that.
Um,
But yeah. Oh, the music as well. I don't know if the music is playing in the stream. I guess it would.
uh, it
Hello.
is.
Yeah, the
Hi.
music plays on the
Back,
stream.
Kate. Yes. Both music tracks for Raru and Hermit are done by Pragmatic Nihilist, and
As-
Ace at the
Ah,
Party Recall
beautiful.
is done by Kate too.
Yeah, I did do that one, didn't I?
Yeah, and
Yep.
it slaps. I love it. When I was playing like the dev build, like the final dev build for it, and that music came on, I was like, oh, I forgot how much it slapped.
Yeah, we just spent like the entire time you were gone just praising the team because they deserve it. You all deserve it.
They
Just
really do.
bravo.
I'm so proud of this project. I'm so happy that it's come together like this, and I love working with this
Yeah.
team of people. Let's get started on
Uh,
this masked ass hermit.
Yep.
yeah.
Or you could say just masked hermit, but with ass and masked.
Against your better judgment, you are choosing to follow the directives of a voice with no name. Now, 3 days after having experienced this barren boneyard for the first time, you've returned for an appointment. Though you've been interrogated by recordings and falling instrument cases, had things literally blow up in your face, and almost killed a man over a tip off from this mysterious entity, you find yourself again carrying out his requests. Some might think you foolish, but you know, and perhaps find it painful to admit, that each step has also brought you more information than you'd have gleaned otherwise. Every trait left leaves clues. Every piece you move changes the lay of the board. You are here for the long game, and you're betting that eventually there will be a slip up. For now, you bid a brief farewell to your bike, again parked neatly as far into the boneyard as it could go. Your appointment is with a hermit, but you were quick to make the connections over the last few days. Hermit is one of the dark web aliases you noted down while following Bitcon's tracks. An alias, much like a mask, can obfuscate and hide the truth. Your job has always been to search out obfuscations, though, so you step once more into the graveyard, sliding down some weak soil into the pit below. Your rendezvous is scheduled to occur soon. You make your way to its location, the massive skull of Baragoneth. A horned skull like this would have belonged to one of the breeds of skull titans that roam the landscape. You'll find the skull, and like so much of this barren planet, it is deteriorating, broken, and falling apart. Certainly quite the landmark. You take a moment to scan the area. The chaotic mess of bones strewn about the field make the place rife with hiding spots. Some parasites, freshly hashed, skitter past in the distance. Being back here again fills you with a sense of circularity, if one can be so geometrically inclined. There's a feeling of chasing your tail in this case, and you're not particularly pleased about it. Twice now you come to this very area, and you honestly feel that is 2 times too many. An unbonded Lucis skitters through one eye hole and out the other. You hear the soft grit of the shoe against the dirt and whirl around. Who wants to voice this guy?
Um, can do it. Like, unless Alien wants to, but
Yeah, I'll do it.
Alright, Alien, you take these lines.
awesome.
A figure approaches, shadowed by the darkness. It's hard to make them out in the moon's light, and your hand jumps to the hilt of your blade, gripping it carefully. The figure approaches, hunching their body down, and you can finally see them clearly. You're pretty sure this is who you're after.
There's no need for that now, is there? We have an appointment, regulator.
You decide to deny that de-escalation and keep your hand on your sword. The light glow from the mask he wears seems to stare beneath you, through you, and you can't see much of anything beneath. Like an alias, a mask can hide many things.
Now, why would a chief regulator have a face-to-face appointment with me? Or perhaps face-to-mask is more appropriate. Lol.
I think you'll find that's unimportant. I'm here, at least.
Goodness, so defensive. I guess it can't be helped dealing with someone like you.
Someone like you. You can't help but feel like you're being oddly sized up yourself. There's no obvious signs of a weapon being concealed under that triangular cloak, but the absence of visible arms of either sort keeps you tense. I received a tip that you may have relevant information pertaining to my current case. A vital resource has been stolen, and I intend to chase down the culprit.
Noxious did brief me, yes. Funny fellow. No wonder he seems so drained of energy.
Well, now that's something new. Noxious was another online name you came across in your search. Although it's likely that this mysterious entity knows how to cover their tracks, you definitely filed this under X for extremely relevant.
But for you to reveal yourself here on my turf? Lol. You must be desperate.
That gets a grit of your teeth. You dislike that there is a seed of truth in it. You wouldn't be here if so many other paths you've taken already have been resolved more favorably. And while you manage to add several trolls to a strange roster of familiarity, actual advances toward a conclusion to this burglary deal have been few and far between. You crave progress, even if it means stepping foot into treacherous territory. You regret that the thought almost immediately, as more sounds make themselves heard. It's clear where they're coming from. A small group, similar to those trolls you faced 3 days prior, are shuffling at a pace only they could find quick. Your hand is about to tug Proserpina from your hip and show them a thing or two, but before you can, you notice a motion from the hunched individual. In one swift motion, the hermit pulls a spherical vial of something from his cloak, flinging it to the oncoming crowd. It explodes on contact with the rough ground, knocking about half the surprisingly large group back with enough force to cause head trauma, if your recent experience is anything to go by. That's not even the real kicker. The liquid inside seems to be partially corrosive. It's clear that the skin of some of the creatures has begun to burn away. A few more approach, and you take the chance to repay the motion. Get down! You swing wildly as the masked individual bobs down, cleanly decapitating the heads off one of the approaching hordes. Pivoting around his now even more hunched body, you follow it up with a well-placed kick. Although you don't necessarily gut the creatures like a certain doctor, they are sent back, crashing to the side of the skull. Hermit dusts himself off, extending back to half-hunched height.
Fancy footwork there.
I must admit, you have some truly potent brews yourself.
Oh, that old thing? That's nothing. You couldn't even handle my strongest potions, regulator.
A few parasites exit the head now with no body of its own. Hermit squishes one with his boot before sighing. You see him wipe his feet on the dirt, scratching off the sticky resin. Withdrawing a cleaning cloth of your own, you begin to take care of your sword. The brown blood comes off easily enough. Another link in a cyclic chain. It takes you back to the case you finished before this one. Such closure was tantalizing, and feels so out of reach at the moment. A stomp of feet breaks you out of your introspection.
As much as I enjoy messing with the corpses, out here isn't the best place to chat. Why don't we go to the bunker? Have a nice cold OJ and wait for this all to blow over.
He seems to be motioning you around the side of the skeleton. With your blade now out, you feel adequately equipped to deal with any sort of double crossing, and cautiously follow the masked man towards a large bone of those skeletal remains. With a quick shove, it becomes clear that it was covering a trapdoor, hastily assembled in the ground.
I hope you'll protect this secret for me. It's in your nature, no? After you, Regulator.
The phrasing strikes you as odd. Usually you're the type to search out and expose things which are hidden. Those of ill repute rarely air their dirty deeds in public. I can't make any promises. You give the surrounds one last look and send Hermit a judging glare before stepping down. Beneath the raised trapdoor is a descending staircase, the bottom of which you can't see. Yet another point of familiarity. Not too long ago, a different sketchy man of the Shadow Realm led you down a staircase awfully similar to this one. Not too long ago, a different sketchy man of the Shadow Realm... Oh, sorry. In fact, if you didn't know better, you would say it looks positively identical. You hear the rumble beyond you of the trapdoor being shut, and you can only assume that there's some complicated mechanism set up to reset the bone from this side. The thought doesn't dwell for long in your mind. With outside moon's light covered, the glow from the bottom of the stairs makes itself known. Soon you reach it, exiting into a rather jam-packed basement.
Ah, bunker, sweet bunker. Well, since you're here, no sense keeping up appearances.
You were surprised he's dropping his guard so quickly. Time to see who this hermit really is. He removes his mask. You have no idea who this is. It shouldn't really be surprising, though. This world is partially full. Yeah, this world is partially full of so many trolls, and you've only had the fortune of coming across those in corporate. Those who would draw corporate's ire, and a few others with which you've become otherwise entangled. And while you may be meeting more and more of them by the day, it certainly doesn't mean you've yet exhausted the planet's declining population. And you begin to return your blade to your hilt, Hermit reaches for another orange vial from what you can only hope is an organized collection of elixirs. He takes a swig of it before holding it towards you.
Care for some?
You politely decline. It's taxing to try not let the repulsion settling into your stomach bore through into your face, like the acid you sincerely hope is not in that vial. He shrugs and downs the rest of the bottle himself, before pocketing the empty bottle underneath his cloak.
More for me, then. Ha 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 ha.
The monotone way he laughs sends a shudder down your spine. It would probably be best to get on with things. If you don't mind, Hermit, I'd appreciate some answers.
Of course, ask away.
I only briefly glimpsed at them while you were in motion, but your arms seem rather worse for wear. Would you mind if I took a closer look?
Cecily, are you asking me to retrieve arms from chest?
Yes, I'm asking you to retrieve your arms from your chest. He starts to wiggle his arms out from under the cloak, clearly taking his time to tease you with it. First, he reveals his hands, followed by the rest of the arms. You let out a scoff about halfway through the forearm's exit. And all the while, Hermit's face is plastered with the most shit-eating grin imaginable. You think you could give some of the Repetonian chuckle bunkers a run for their money.
Well, here they are.
The bandages run much further up his arms than you initially thought. They might even run up his undershirt. It's hard to tell. That's certainly some first aid. Did these bandages go all the way?
It's best this way. It hides the pain.
As much as you'd like to push further on that point, something else grabs your attention. There's a feeling in the back of your head, almost like a headache spreading across your mind. You place a hand to your head for a moment, groaning in pain. It almost feels like something is trying to pull at your thoughts, tugging them a certain way. This doesn't feel right. You need to focus. You remember back to Mashiri and her meditative session. There is a moment of emptiness in your thoughts. The soft tug is gone. Shaking your head, you feel the last cobwebs of confusion brush off your mind. Catalyst seems to be staring much more intently than you remember a moment ago.
Oh, I've got nothing to worry about, it seems. Except, perhaps, your next question?
Sure, that sounds alright, you guess. Time for another question, then. I'm noting a theme here. Lots of potions, vials, and liquids of all assortments. Certainly the room seems full of them and not much else. There are many different colors on display here, and you're hoping this isn't a repeat of certain navy-blooded scientists' laboratory.
I'm a seller of all manner of chemical concoctions. Acids, potions, curatives, poisons. You need it, I can make it.
I assume most people on the dark web search you out for this reason.
It's a living, yes.
Dare I ask how you've come to be in the possession of so many different creations?
They are all failures.
And people buy failures?
Failure is a relative term. I'm sure you failed quite a bit yourself. Each one of these chemical creations is the result of carefully followed steps, and either they result in what they result in what I'm trying to make, or they don't. If they don't, I find out what they do, and then I sell them.
Judging by the volume of vials, Hermit has seen a lot of failure. You feel a strange sense of camaraderie, though. This whole case so far has seen you mostly at dead ends, and though some of the leads you've taken haven't led to immediate success, each one brought new information and understanding. You feel you understand what he's saying. So, then, what are you after?
Oh, now that is truly the question. It is elusive, and only talked of in hushed whispers between those mad enough to pursue it. The water of life. Aqua vitae? Vitae?
Vitae.
Vitae. Aqua vitae.
Hey, are you streaming?
Yeah.
Or is it just reading? Where's the stream? Can you link it?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're streaming in front of an audience, yes.
Oh,
Hi, Mom.
hi audience.
This is our music maker, and he did a fantastic job on both Raru and Cactus tracks.
Yeah, take a fucking bow, man.
I feel like I should go back to reading. I don't want to distract.
Oh, okay.
It's not what you would call common knowledge, but someone of your profession comes across enough laboratory settings and strange individuals to have at least heard the term once or twice. Most dismiss this practice. It's seen as bordering on fanatical fancy, but after what you've come to know from this investigation, and the way something like the lifeblood of the vivifier can fit into those practices, Hermit instantly rises a few notches on the skepticism meter. In your more recent memory lingers the pursuit of a devoted man, desperately searching through a cure for careful experimentation, the shared hope of redeeming this fractured world. In contrast, the haphazard and often self-destructive nature of those who pursue aqua vitae becomes impossible to contain. What you've heard about the water of life is a more misguided optimism. The liquid is said to wash rivers clean, to bring those who are suffering back to reality once more. The thought of someone willingly interacting with water at all almost has you revisiting an earlier meal. Almost. You're a professional, after all. Nevertheless, the parallels to this missing filter are too large to ignore. Only one could naturally assume it would be a vital component of such a creation. Someone searching for such an elixir would need some seriously powerful items, I assume. Like a stolen filter of import.
Lol. I know all about your missing goods regulator. But rest assured, I have no connection to the theft. If I had, do you think I would be here in front of you? Ha 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 ha.
That's true enough, you surmise. If you had an elixir of life-giving blood fall into your lap, you'd hardly be meeting with strangers either. Much less so if it was relevant to your work as it is to his. You quickly scan the room of bottled potions, looking for anything else to ask about. Your eye is drawn to a particularly dark mix near the back of the room. It seems to visibly churn within its glassy confines. You find yourself strangely mesmerized, its motion similar to those conical coulis candles that were all the rage some sweeps back. That darker vial in the back, what type of brew is that one?
No, absolutely not. How about a curative? I have some nice salves you might enjoy.
It seems you won't be getting much more out of him than that particular liquid. Best to move on, then. You have no interest in receiving second aid, or any other ordinals for that matter. Beyond the comfortably large space you are in, it's clear that there are several other connecting rooms branching out from the central hub. You note as much to the self-proclaimed hermit aloud.
I suppose I'm yet to give you a tour. What a terrible host I am.
He gestures to the room to the left from the stairwell entrance. The path toward it seems to be increasingly littered with those potion flasks, plant life, and a number of other curios whose origins you're not entirely sure you could name.
To the left here is the herb room, where I cultivate all manner of greenery that takes my fancy. It's connected to the main lab area, too.
Before you can comment on the possible dangers of lab work underground, he's already moving on. With a slight motion of his arms, Hermit next indicates the opposing direction.
To the right, my mate Marie's workshop.
I'm sorry, another troll works down here? You decide to... Whoops, I'm reading that also. You decide to leave the Matesprit revelation alone for now. That could send your think pan back to Headache City, population U. Why, Cecily?
Why, Cecily?
Oh, I'm so bad! Keep going.
Why, Cecily, she lives down here. But you're jumping the gun a little. If you'll let me continue. Lol.
You roll your eyes, sighing. It seems he takes that as an invitation to resume.
Marie and I have a room at the very back of this complex. Dia's room is to the right, opposite our ablution facilities. Sometimes others stay. We try and be accommodating. I know it doesn't seem like much, but to us, it's home.
Certainly an interesting choice of hive. It's well suited, you suppose. At least from what you've gleaned of Hermit thus far. And Dia, another bondmate?
No, she's... We look after her. She lost everything.
There's an odd quiet that hangs in the air. For the first time, you can hear the emptiness of the room, the way a planet rustles from an errant breeze, swept leafwards from some hard-to-see ventilation. The gap it leaves feels comforting, reassuring. It's clear that he doesn't want to get into it, though he continues to guard his own expressions. You can respect that, even if it's for a man who you're still not sure is friend or foe. Whether they're in tight cahoots with Noxious or not, loss is universal. That's very noble of you. Cadlis tilts his head, but says nothing more. Perhaps another question is in order instead. You figure it's about time you got to the crux of things. The only reason you're here is apparently on the request of a mysterious figure, known for unsolicited calls and sometimes having just a bit too much information. But just how is Hermit connected to him, and the bigger plot remains an unknown. My biggest unanswered question in all of this is perhaps the most obvious. How do you know Noxious?
As I said before, I'm a seller of many things, to many people. To whom I sell? That is unimportant. As long as they can fund the work I believe needs doing, I will accept their loops.
I hope you're aware I could easily bring you in over these admissions alone. Black market dealings, while common, aren't exactly above the board. Above the board here is a turn of phrase referring to the many corporate boards of directors usually in charge of making decisions on these sorts of cases. You doubt they would be forgiving.
Of course, regulator. I would love to see you try. I have no intention of letting you separate me and my work. Ha 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 ha.
He grabs a nearby orange potion and seemingly downs it in a single threatening gulp, but you can't be swayed by such blasé intimidation.
Perhaps unfortunately for me, I have little information. Noxious is notorious for taking what he needs from you. A pickpocketer of particulars, someone in the shadows, trading goods and information, silhouetted, staying low. I've traded with him myself, but it's amounted to little more than this conversation with you outside of those deals.
Great. This feels like another dead end. Another troll in a string of mutated waterfowl beasts chases that has led you to no closer to the mysterious puppet master tugging you along. Though it has guided you to some interesting confrontations, a new visor, and a collection of youths you would protect with your life, it is like the tasty morsels of progress or insight you were hoping for. Your eyes furrow as you pinch the bridge of your nose. Collapsing into what you are hoping is a chair of some description, you allow yourself a moment to compose your thoughts. Some nearby vials idly clink against each other, and the ringing sound causes you to wince. Bringing Hermit in would certainly give you some closure, but you can't help shaking that he's currently your best link to Noxious himself. And though you hate how it gets to you in the pit of your chest, the man is clearly responsible for the well-being of many people. Some immediate, some through his highly questionable work. For every poison, there is a cure. You're quite an enigma, Hermit. He gives a showy bow in return, smiling a long grin.
I do try my best. Everyone wears masks, Cecily. Even yourself. They're good at hiding those pesky feelings we don't want others to see. If you'll indulge me, I have a question of my own, lol. Should we bring back those we have lost?
All at once, you can feel your own mask slip, for just the briefest of seconds. The slightest widening of your eyes, letting loose 10 sweeps worth of remorse in a single controlled motion. Can he tell? It's hard to say. Right now, his mask holds up better than yours. Through the time you spent examining and scrutinizing OCS's work, you never once considered the immediate applications, the possible ramifications, the potential it could bring. And here, Hermit himself is toiling away in parallel on a concoction he believes could do the very same. You could be with her again, couldn't you? Tap, tap. Tap, tap. Tap, tap. Tap, tap. You've started to tap at your palms again. What would you say if you could see that glowing face again? If you had the choice, would you bring her back? The part of you that aches over her threatens to make the decision for you.
There's a lot of good people could do with that blood. There's a lot of bad as well. Like any mixture, it depends on what you add to it, what you feed it. You've seen for yourself these husks that wander above. I, like many others, want to see this broken world healed. To patch up the scars, the pain, to undo the hurt.
It's almost imperceptible, but you catch it. The slight twitch of his cheek. A crack in the disguise.
But I'm not alone in this ambition. Lol. There are others who seek alternative methods of retribution. One of them chooses to face these forces head-on, and to enact his own brand of justice. I don't think he cares much for my destructive tendencies, but, well, few can handle my concoctions. There's a name for him on the Shadow Web. Ashbringer. For someone quite so adept with that mechanical arm of his, he's no closer to stopping the scourge than I. Maybe you should pay him a visit?
You have a pretty good idea of who he's referencing. There's a hint of threat in that last line, and your mind instantly considers this an admission from Hermit that Noxious may have plans for the so-called Ashbringer. I appreciate the heads up, and I'm sure you'll understand that I intend to keep this place on my radar regardless.
Naturally, Cecily. You're welcome to my tame stock whenever you please. I'm sure we can work out a deal.
The very thought of being limited to the paltry dregs of his arsenal gets your scoff of disapproval. Surely if I were going into battle, I'd require your strongest potions.
You could not handle my strongest potions, Regulator!
you, you almost brush off his accusations as some strange joke, but on second glance it becomes clear that this anger is real. He allows himself a moment to exhale before loosening his fists.
Strength in the hands of those who believe themselves fit to wield it. It can be a curse. It can cause immense pain. I reiterate to you, Regulator, should we bring back those we have lost? Should we? I too know how it feels, that, in some part, they are not here. And when we assume responsibility for it, that weighs on you. It weighs on your skin. Sometimes, life is simply unfair.
The breath you've been holding for the past minute finally escapes your lips. You touch a hand to your arm, tracing skin that is lined with reminders of the way you throw yourself into this profession. The recollection of a blade plunged beside the blood pusher of a bronze-butted troll and the affirmation you made them take, same as all the others. All you do for her. The mask has finally slipped away. Before you stands someone who has suffered great loss, and in knowing that hardship, he seeks out to rescue others from a similar fate. You have a feeling Dia is in good hands. At times like this, it can seem like the only solace you have is in the most eternal of places. When I find myself questioning why I keep going, or in the moments when I dole out retribution, I have a ritual. Something I undertake to reaffirm to myself why I do what I do. You raise your hands above your head and begin to recite that well-trodden oath. I, Cecily Opara, do on this day make a promise. This I pledge to any maker or to the souls who lie beyond, that what we do for them. For those we have lost. We will send them as many as needed to avenge them. You let your words settle in the air. That's the second bout of proselytizing you've done in as many weeks. This one, however, feels slightly more honest than a spur-of-the-moment preaching to some children of the corn.
I pledge to any maker or souls who lie beyond that what we do for them. For those we have lost, we will send them as many as we needed to avenge them. This I say, and bind to the All-Mother with my name. Cadmus Rancor. Oh, what a touching sentiment. And I trust that's another secret you'll keep nice and hidden from me, no? Don't answer that. I already know you will.
Well, maybe you don't completely understand him, but Cadmus has at least earned some of your respect. He hasn't killed you yet, which is something you consider to be a good sign of a person. You give a brief farewell, one short wave to the cypress-blooded troll, and a nod and a smile to the young troll in the hallway, curiously peeking into the cacophony. Climbing back up the stairs, you give a vocal command asking Eve to call up Orica. Sassy! So good to hear from you again, Glance Nuggets. I need Necron's whereabouts. Think you can track him down?
And there's the end card that I did with the help of Big Chalupa.
It's so good.
Thank you.
Fucking Cadmus has got a sort of a Cuphead thing going on here. It's awesome.
Had to unmute here for a second. You guys need to know, Alien did that with a mouse.
What the
A
fuck?
mouse.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I draw with the mouse. I don't use the tablet. At any moment you think you see pen pressure there, that's me manually going in and tapering the line.
What the hell? Okay.
That's what I do.
All right. Koei did the programming for this. I wrote one scene in the Raru route, the Yeshin scene. Veritas Une wrote the rest. What an incredible contribution. Let's see. Zamak did the sprite of Cecily and Yeshin dancing. Ciro added the Bitcon and Yeshin sprites. Donut did Raru sprites, and Charlie did Cadlus's sprites. Backgrounds for this volume were provided by Phil, Big Chalupa, Chuchumi, D, and Ciro and Olshu. Big Chalupa did the ending illustrations. Big Chalupa, Chuchumi, and Alienoid did the ending illustrations. The new music for this route was Raru's theme, Ratatouille, and Cadlus's theme, Potion Seller, enough of these games.
Ratatouille.
Ratatouille, alright.
Yeah,
I
it's
see.
Ratatouille.
Aha, I get it now.
Unfortunate mistake on your part, Kate.
Yeah, I know. I did Yeshin's theme. Yeshin somehow irresistible. Fear created Raru Dursal and Cadmus Rancor. I made Yeshin Lavis. Yeah, that's our volume. That's pretty good.
Do we wish a birthday yet? Do we wish a happy birthday yet?
Oh yeah, happy birthday to Fear. This is a very. I hope you like your
Fear.
birthday present of a visual novel starring two of your incredible characters.
Yeah.
If you like this volume, I'm also very excited for the next volume. Not only am I doing the music for it, I also have been working on writing one of the routes for on and off for a couple months now. I'm really excited for what's going to turn out.
Yeah, like I was saying earlier, like get excited for that shit.
Yeah, I'm
Get
very
pumped.
excited.
Get hyped.
Let's see. So you can go to fasterror.itch.io. You can donate. All your donations are split equitably amongst the team. It's been awesome to see your support so far. This game is free, and your donations are an incredible inspiration to us. Tell your friends about Snowbound Blood. Whether you're watching this live on Twitch or later on YouTube. Thanks for coming by.
Just freaking amazing, guys.
Yeah,
Like,
I know. I love this shit. All right, I guess I'm gonna turn off the stream. See you guys.
yep. Toodaloo.